We thank the Lord for this day. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Now the question comes, what do you do in your life when you reach at a place where you are all alone and there's nobody to stand with you? I want us to look at a biblical passage found in 1 Samuel. Chapter 30 is the story of David. And I'll read 1 Samuel 30 verse 3 to 6, and then we'll draw some lessons. It says, when David and his men reached Ziklag, they found it destroyed by fire, and their wives and sons and daughters taken captives. Imagine your family man, your wife, your sons and daughters have been taken captives, and you don't know their fate. Now, when you read verse 4, it says, so David and his men wept until they had no strength left to weep. This is when you reach at the end of the road. But now there's somewhere I want you to look. When you read verse 5, it says David's two wives had been captured. And verse 6 says, David was greatly distressed because the men were talking of stoning him. Each one was bitter in spirit because of his sons and daughters. But this is what I want us to focus on. But David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. The title of our little presentation is Encourage Yourself. You see, there is a time when you reach where there is nobody to stand with you. And that is a time you need to learn how to encourage yourself. Now, when you look at the story of David, it's a very interesting story. David is a young man who is anointed by Samuel. And the Bible says the Spirit of God comes upon him with power. And David is about 17, and when he was anointed to be the king of Israel. And you know, many times when we are anointed or we are chosen for a special task, you know, we have this idea that the road will be smooth. But let me tell you, my brother, my sister, the road to your destiny is usually a rough road. Rather than going up, many times we find ourselves going down. You see, at this time, my brother, my sister, I don't know where you are. I remember this year started on a high note. Many of us were saying this was going to be the best year of our lives, and we had great hopes. I remember as a university, with our students and our members of staff, we started with great plans. But then COVID happened, and now you may find yourself, you're in a place where you're alone. All your support systems are gone, and the people you've been looking up to because of their weight upon them are not able to stand with you. This is the time you and I need to learn to encourage ourselves in the Lord. Because the Bible says, but David found strength in the Lord his God. Encourage yourself in the Lord. But the question comes, how do we do that? How do we do that? Number one, it is a conscious choice we must make. You know, I have discovered, ladies and gentlemen, that in life, everything boils down to choices. So I can make a decision, well, by default, to be worried by what is going on around me. Or I can make a choice that I will not look at the circumstances. I'll not look for support from others, but I'll look unto the Lord. Let us not look at human beings. Let us focus on the Lord. And when he focused on the Lord, there is something David realized. That his God had a purpose for him. And let me tell you, when we realize God has a purpose for us, when we realize God has a plan for us, we'll not allow ourselves to be discouraged, because God will not leave us halfway. The Bible says when God starts something, Philippians 1 verse 6, being confident of this, he who began the good work will take it to the finish. And so because you are born for a purpose, you will not perish until that purpose is accomplished. And so when we know that God has a purpose in our lives, we can encourage ourselves in that fact. And the other thing I want to bring from David, which we can apply, David had many Ebenezer moments. Ebenezer moments are those highlights in our lives where we see the footprints of God, the fingerprints of God in our lives. And when you are discouraged, please go back and see how God has led you in the past. Look at his footprints. And when you look at these milestones, we can say, even though the outlook is dark, even though there's nobody who is standing with me, I know God is with me. That God is with us. So even if there is nobody with us, our God is with us, and he will never leave us in the middle. And therefore, David knew, because he has a destiny, because God has spoken over his life, and because he knew God intimately, he knew the promises of God and the plans of God in his life will be fulfilled. And therefore, my brother, my sister, I want to tell you, even this time, you are known by God. You are in the palm of his hands, and he has a plan and a purpose for you. And so don't look at your circumstances. Make a decision today. By the grace of God, you will encourage yourself in God. And so, as you listen to me, I say, encourage yourself in the Lord. Encourage yourself in the Lord.